Hello, I'm Derek Smalls, and you're watching, or listening, or both, to Rock Shop Live with Eric Broadbent. He's the Bent Broad.
You're watching Rock Shop Live, brought to you by Stewart Travel Guitars. See the incredible stowaway travel guitar at stewartguitars.com. Microphones for Rock Shop Live are provided by Rode Microphones. Now, for Music Gear Network, here's your host, guitarist Eric Broadbent.
Hey everyone, happy self-isolating Friday to you all. Welcome to Rock Shop. We are live. Before we jump into the program here, we're obviously very happy to have a familiar face back from about a year and a half back on the show, back on the old EVH and Gear TV, Mr. Jeff Scott Soto. Jeff will say hi in just a quick second before we do, and I know you won't mind me putting someone in front of you. Our brave men and women out there, doctors, nurses, volunteers, hospital staff, first responders, for fighting the good fight for all of us out there. And not only making it safe for us, at home, but also taking care of those in need, which is a very busy job right now. But we'll keep it positive, and it's nice to have you back. How you been?
Very good. I've been utilizing this downtime as much as possible. I mean, again, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be back and talking again. We had a great time last time, and I hope to do it again this time around. Should be even more fun. We have more to talk about.
That's right.
But yeah, I'm utilizing this time to do a lot of things that I normally would be rushing through, because I'm normally right now we should be in the middle of a touring cycle for the new Sons of Apollo record. And I had 3 albums I had to knock out basically in between all my downtime, my small downtime. So I normally would have the pressure and the stress. I'm freaking out. Oh my God, my voice is tired. I got to sing this thing. And then I'm starting the tour next week. I'm starting the tour tired. Now I can actually relax, get everything done, and make sure it's all sounding the way I want it to sound. And until further notice, I mean, we don't know how long this is going to last.
That's right. Well, that's sometimes forced time off, and it's not necessarily 100% time off for you, because as you just said too, now you can do some of these things, but you can kind of do it at a pace where, I know you would never be the type person to phone it in, but I mean, now you can really take the time, really nurture some of these things and really give it the best, and still have some time to enjoy family time at home and a lot of little things that we take for granted. We'll talk about that throughout the program, because you gave some nice little tidbits on the stream yesterday. And I was talking about that in a live stream I did today. I made a mention to you in a couple different times, and and I think one of them was the bean dip too, or the 7-layer dip. So we'll talk about that. But that was a fantastic stream yesterday. Jeff went live yesterday. Some of our fans were over there as well too. I think you had like 600 or 700 people in there at one time. It was just insane.
Yeah, the questions were going by so fast, couldn't keep up with them.
I know.
It's just you and I.
I know. Well, that's cool, because it's like you and I were just talking off the camera. We live in a day and age now today where technology is allowing you to connect. We can't be there in the front row or the balcony or, the bleachers or wherever to see you. So we join however we can, whether it's a Facebook session or, a live Q&A or whatever. So it's nice to have an audience to talk with you tonight. So it's great.
Yeah, and that's what I mentioned, before we were still off the air here. I kind of feel it's my own personal duty to, I'm kind of giving back after so many years of everybody giving me the opportunity to do what I do for a living, giving me the chance to live out my dreams. And, I could be sitting here at home just doing my work and just kind of, each person for themselves. But I kind of felt I wanted to use this platform to reach out to people. And, as an artist, as a singer, as a performer, whatever you want to call it, it's my duty to give you that little escapism. When you come see a show, when you see a video, I give you a little escape for whatever, 2 minutes or 2 hours or whatever it is. And I'm not able to do that right now. So I kind of am. And I'm using these platforms to kind of give a little back without throwing the virtual tip jar out there expecting to be paid for it. I'm already paid for it as far as I'm concerned by all the people showing their love for the music and the years that I've been able to do this. So this is, if anybody's out there that wants to log on and ask me a stupid question about a band that I was in 25 years ago and something they don't remember I answered 1 trillion times in another interview, so be it. Bring it on. And it gives me a chance to kind of keep that connection with everybody while we're going through this horrible time. We're all on the same playing field right now. We're all humans. Forget about the labels, the rock star celebrities. We're all human beings right now dealing with a world planetary crisis.
We are, for sure. And it's nice to see people taking it as seriously as they are. And that'll be a question coming up as well too. I kind of like to get your input where you and the family are. If we're should we not be worrying about it at all? Should we be paranoid? Where are we in the middle? And we'll get your thought on that as well too. But that's one of the things I like to try to do with this show, because I know artists like yourself, every famous person that's out there gets asked the same questions again and again, and it's hard for everyone to be, up to speed with everything that's been asked. So, and I'm sure there are questions that you love to get asked multiple times, but sometimes, some people watch some of my shows and they'll say, we didn't really talk a lot of music. And sometimes we don't. And I feel sometimes that's a good show because, we're talking about the family. We're talking about things that you don't read in the blabbermouths and the blah, blah, blahs, all the online gossip mags.
Exactly that. Yeah. Some of the best interviews, even that I've read, are about that because it's a dime a dozen for, who's your inspiration? When did you start playing guitar? Or who was your inspiration as a singer? Blah, blah, blah. That you can find that information basically by just Googling it.
Yes.
But like I said, there's some things that I haven't said or been asked that we can actually discuss, and you like a first timer.
That's right. I haven't done this to this date, but I am going to do this. I'm making a promise to myself. I'm going to get an 8x10 frame of Chris Farley when he was interviewing Sir Paul McCartney now on Saturday Night Live. Do you remember that episode?
Absolutely. Yeah. One of my favorite of all time.
That's right. And
remember when you were in the Beatles? Yeah, I love that. That's great.
So that is exactly what I don't want to be. That's been my motto. So like, Jeff, is it cool to play with Mike Portnoy? And then we answer. Now we've got crickets and we wait, right? So, yeah, that's awesome. Anyways, let's go back. And I just did a Chris Farley. There you go. I can't even get away from that. Was awesome. Let's go say hi to a bunch of people that are jumping in and say hi to you as well too. R3 Locking Net, one of our moderators and good friends, Zach Thong. Pepe Juarez LaRue is here. So let's like Pepe LaRue. Mr. Hellstorm 74, and he made a comment somewhere in here. He says, I've been somewhere. He says, this is my third live chat with Jeff this week. Hope he doesn't think I'm stalking him. Awesome. RW bass player.
All you want, man.
I know we like to entertain. That's for sure. Brad Miller is here. Jack Clark, Scott Roos, Gary Holt is here. Carlos Santon, my beautiful butterfly and ladybug show. And people, if you have questions for Jeff throughout the program, tag either myself, Music Gear Network, or Butterfly and Ladybug Show, and we'll get those questions funneled off to Jeff. Because sometimes I miss them. She won't let me miss them. Rob F is here. Nick Rush from over in South Africa is here. Good friend of mine. Let me see here. I think getting down towards the bottom. Richard McCarthy. Guitar Man 45, and okay, I'm gonna go backwards a little bit. Tiffany Rose is here, big fan, lots of hearts for Jeff. Guitar Hack is here. I was over in his show last night. That was a lot of fun. CB Roswell, great attitude, Jeff. I agree on that for sure. And I think that's about it for. Frank Kushad is here. Did I see Frank? Yes, I just had an update with Frank.
Shout outs, man. Imagine if somebody was paying you for like a Cameo account for all these shout outs. You could be a rich man right now.
I could. I wish, right? But here's something I want to talk about. It was a lot of fun last time you were here. We'll kind of warm up a little bit by talking about where we left off last time. So we had a bit of a gimmick last time that really was a kind of like a running joke for a bit. We had all five of you guys on the band, the band on the show, and I forget who was first. I think I had Derek first. And Derek was just an audio, it wasn't a video call, so it was just audio. But each week, over the course of 5 weeks, you guys tried to outdo yourselves and prove who was the bigger Van Halen fan. And I think we didn't really award a trophy. I should make a little plaque and send it. But I think the award went to Billy as but that was fun.
Good. I mean, when you've played with every member of Van Halen at some point or another, at some whatever. I think automatically that by default you win.
And what was really cool too, I mean, first of all, you had a Van Halen shirt of some sort. I forget what it was. It was kind of like the 78. I forget what you were wearing, but it was Van Halen related. But when Mike was on the show, thank goodness for a fan being quick on his feet. And I do forget who it was, and he'll kill me for forgetting his name. But Mike was downstairs in the man cave. And, he could see his drum kit back in the back there.
I'm just looking for something. Keep going.
No problem. So Mike was back in the back corner, and someone said, could Mike do a hop on a kit and do some playing? And of course, he took us up on that, went back there and played Hot for Teacher. Oh, there you go. It was the Van Halen t-shirt. Yeah.
That's right here on the side of the desk here since we did our last chat. I was going to actually open the show with all the CDs with DLR on them, like a fan. I was going to hold them like a folding fan.
There you go. Perfect.
I forgot to bring them all in, and that's been sitting there since the last time we spoke.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, good memory, too. That's cool. It was probably about a year and a half ago, I think, too. The time really freaking flies.
Oh, yeah.
But that was fun, like we're obviously talking about the band and what was happening. The album had just come out, was doing well, but it was nice to get perspective from each of you. And, it was a great opportunity to have all five of you on the show. So I want to thank each of you for doing that. And Billy's on the show on Sunday, too, by the way.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, it really stinks for us. I think you're probably going to get to it of why or how what led to the events of us having to cancel the tour. I mean, I could start it off if you like.
Yeah, go ahead, because that was a question coming up. So go ahead, let's talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, we obviously the things were going down. It wasn't as serious in Europe as of yet when we were leaving for the European tour. By the time we landed and we started the rehearsals and the kind of pre-production rehearsals for the actual tour, that's when things were starting to heat up in Italy, and we were even told that there might be a possibility that that show might be canceled in Milan. And from that, we were already, we can't afford canceled shows. Anybody knows a canceled show means revenue lost, but where we still got to pay for buses and hotels and fee, salaries for our crew. There's so many things, so many parameters involved in going on tour. And so luckily our tour manager went into panic mode, and he was able to find us a kind of a fill-in show for less money, but because it was last minute, nobody was going to give us the kind of guarantees you get for a 6-month promo show.
Sure.
But it was a fill-in show, so we wouldn't lose. It stop the hemorrhaging, so to speak, in case the Milan show would be canceled. But by the time we got to the opening night in Germany, we did 2 sold-out shows in Germany. By the time we got to that point, Switzerland was already starting to show signs of we might be canceled too. And then France kicked in. And then we were just, oh, geez, maybe we should just do these fly dates and go home, or maybe we should even just finish the German dates and go home. We decided let's wait out a couple more days, and we did the fly dates in Norway and in Sweden. And that's where we said this, no way. If we continue this, that's when the real hemorrhaging of tour losses begins. We don't know. Right at that point was right at the very beginning of the fever pitch. That's where Italy was really starting to get hit, and it was just starting to spread. And we were still out of the danger zone. We weren't in the countries that necessarily were showing signs of that this was going to hit them. But even in general, when you're flying, you don't know who you're interacting with in different parts of the world. That's basically how this thing spread. So we could be in any country that doesn't have a problem with it, but if somebody's coming from another country and spreading that in an airport, then all of a sudden it's how it happens. Just like in the movie Contagion. I don't know if anybody
I watched it last night.
has seen that movie. It's verbatim of what we're dealing with right now. So we had to unfortunately pull the plug and decide that our health and the health of everybody else that were coming to our shows was more important. We got a little blasted on the side. There were some fans and even promoters that were going against us, saying, well, we don't have the problem here. We're not affected here. And guess what? These places now, that it's where they've been hit the biggest. So if we'd stayed on, who knows if I would be in quarantine in some army hospital somewhere, or not even be able to come into my own home country. We could not foresee the future. So we just decided, let's pack it up. Let's go home and wait this thing out. And just after we got in, that's where the swarm, the domino effect of all the tours were coming out that were canceled, and then festivals were canceled, and it was just becoming. I got to the point where I was more interested in seeing who was going to ride it out, who's going to cowboy it out.
Yeah.
Because you might as well not even put out a press release. Everything was canceled.
Yeah, it went fast.
So, yeah.
It went really fast. And I have to give kudos to your team management or whoever made the call, because it's something that you don't take lightly. It's one thing missing a couple shows, but all of a sudden now when you see a tour that takes forever to route as it is, that's just the world's falling apart around you. And then, as you say, like you see the big tours, like the Slipknot tours and all those other things that were overseas, and then festival after festival. It's got to be shocking for sure. But yeah, you acted quick on your feet. And there were some talks recently too, when it was getting really, really bad over here in North America, that, at least here in Canada too, that some of the people, the government's going to try to help them get them back in, but there might become a time where we're sorry you're safer where you may be, as opposed to coming in. So that's scary. That would be horrible to be away from your family, and that kind of thing. So you got
and everybody at home, of course, they were screaming, "Come home, come home!" And to be honest with you, I mean, we're still, Mike, Derek, and I, and Ron, we're closer in the kind of, we still have that kind of punk cowboy attitude of let's just go for it. And first of all, was our kudos to our tour manager Frank. He was the first one, because obviously he's overseeing the finances. If anything goes awry, he's going to get the blame for it. So he's the first one that said, guys, I think it's going to be bad. My opinion is we got to pull it. And then the second one to step up and say that was Billy. And Billy is our elder statesman. I have full respect for what he feels, what he's seen. He's seen a lot more life than I have. So I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with the obvious, which is on the financial end if it's going to ruin us. But I'm also going to go with the person who's been here longer, has seen a lot more, and he pretty much called it as it happened. He called pretty much the whole series of events as it happened. So I was happy to side with Billy that I think you're right. I think we better get home. But then again, when we're doing those other dates, the momentum of the band, the album, the people were coming out. We were picking up so much steam. It made us go, oh, maybe we should just write it out. I think we'll be okay. And then they kept saying, no, guys, you should go home, you should go home. Mm-hmm. So we finally let, the voice of reason speak, and we pulled the plug, and thank God we did.
Well, it is good too, because as you know, there's bands that come back from that tour, like the Testament tour and stuff that was happening. There are a couple of guys who are sick, and we're seeing celebrities in the news right now, different people, different walks of life that are sick that we know. And it's like, okay, all right, well, that could be me, But here's a question I didn't really necessarily have on the itinerary, but when you talk about, the tours are canceled and, you got trucks, you got people to pay for, people sometimes don't realize the employment that goes over an organization, like a business, like the group. And I'm not going to ask you to commit to a number, but do you know roughly how many staff approximately are involved in Sons of Apollo, like from administration people to the trucking to tech? Like, there's a lot of people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You have the obviously the gear company who's relying on the rentals that we needed for that tour. You have the bus company. They have the driver who's relying on that particular job, and then you have our own personal crew. We travel with 6 people. Our tour manager is also our sound guy, but we have lighting. We have a tech for each guy in the band. Even actually, there's one guy that techs for Billy and Bumble, and he takes care of my mics and my setup. But there's 11 of us total on that side alone. But then you have all the local crew. You have the people at the venues. There's so many parameters involved that everybody's losing. You have the booking agency. You have the local promoters. It's a lot of people, man. And this is a small scale. You start talking about some of the tours you were talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, anything from Slipknot to Madonna to those. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of people involved.
Yeah, and instantly, right then, from that moment, they say tours canceled. Now they're unemployed. I have a couple friends that are guitar techs for a lot of the big groups, and the same thing. I mean, it's like, whoa, okay, what am I going to do now? Like, okay, I gotta bounce. And I think that's one thing that's going to come out of a blessing out of all this. There's going to be a lot of blessings, I'm sure, in the long run. But we're learning how to, a lot of us haven't been forced to adapt. And musicians, like they've been on the road their whole life, and hopefully for most of them, they've, nested some money in the bank and saving some, but other people, they survive on being on the road. It's almost like the check to check thing. And now we've had to adapt different things, either because guitar lessons or coming up with a craft of some sort online and selling it, merchandise. I don't know what it may be, but we're all learning to adapt, because who knows how long we're going to be forced to do that.
It's true, yeah. And even with government assistance, it's only going to go so far. If you're used to making or earning, I mean, especially a musician, I mean, that's the hardest one to really calculate. There's some months you're just killing it, and then there's some months that are slim. So you rely on those killing it months to through. But if what we're dealing with happened just before the slimmer months, you're screwed. Luckily, the smarter ones, they're able to say, I need to save for a rainy day. Well, guess what? It's raining hard right now. And thank God I save for a rainy day, because, we're supposed to move next year. We wanted to kind of upgrade and buy a house somewhere else, possibly, maybe even get out of California. And we might be stuck. We might have to say we're living on the money that we were saving for exactly that. We might have to just rely on staying put.
Exactly. Well, it's probably something you'd agree on too, as well. To all these musicians looking for a career in music, young musicians, whatever, anywhere in between. And I mean, I know trying to do that these days is very, very hard. But let's just say you get into it. But it's nice to have a business education, have somebody in your band, have the business education. Better you than waiting for the next guy to see who it is, so you can learn how to manage finances and things of that nature, and plan for those rainy days. So you.
This is one of the biggest bits of advice that I give out. If anybody asks me to give advice to a young musician, up and coming band or artist, I say the same thing. Well, there's 2 things. Persistence is that's the main key. That's the main thing you need to make it in this world, in this industry. Because if you don't have persistence, you got nothing. But yeah, the second major thing is learn the business. Because if you don't learn the business, man, somebody's going to take you to the cleaners. So you got to know what to expect, when to expect it, and how to expect it. Otherwise, you're just going to be left holding your you know what in your hand.
That's right. I mean, even if you're lucky enough to get some kind of a deal, I mean, the deals are a few and far between now as well too. But they look at a contract, and some of these bands be so excited just to sign. Hey, we're signed, and meanwhile, you've just given them everything. Those advances you're going to be paying back for the next 10 years. You know, just crazy stuff. So be aware.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there was two really good comments that were funneled in for you. One, it was just a statement from BLI Airport Operations. It says, "Hey Jeff, love watching you in Tacoma during the TSO tour. You all rock."
Right.
And Jonathan Aaron Steele asks, which Yngwie album do you prefer, Rising Force or Marching Out?
Well, I got to go with Marching Out only because there are more vocal songs on that album.
There you go. Nice.
Having a kind of a little funny chat with, I got a little group chat with Brent Woods, who plays guitar with Sebastian Bach, Eric Singer from Kiss, and Derek. And we're kind of like the two old men. I always forget their name, from the Muppet Show, but there's four of us.
Yeah.
And constantly just bagging on each other, and it's a fun little thing. But we were just talking about that, and Eric had to throw in that Marching Out album. That's the best thing you or Yngwie did together. That's whatever. And then of course Derek has to stir the pot, and he said, "Well, I think the first album was better." I'm like, "Hey, there's only two songs I sing on that record. Hey."
Yeah, and probably about 45 seconds of vocal on each song, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I choose Marching Out because the same as I would choose the second Sons of Apollo record over the first, only because by the time we did Marching Out, I already had experience of working with Yngwie, coexisting with them, the guys in the band, etc., which I didn't have on the first. The first album, I barely knew him, and I was thrown into the studio, and I was nervous as hell, and we got my performances the way they are. I mean, I was 18 years old when I did that record, but I even hear and see the growth it was only a few months between when I did the vocals for that album and Marching Out. But I'd already had a few months of camaraderie with the guys, and I had a little more easeability in getting those songs and that singing done. And of course, as I said, there are more singing songs, and you add to the fact that I co-wrote some of the songs on the record. So I had a little more at stake for that record than I did. Obviously, the first one, you say, learn these songs, you're singing it this weekend, you're done.
Yeah.
Or the other, I got to craft it, I got to hone in and put a little piece of me into it. And that's how I feel even about the new Sons of Apollo record. I feel there's more of my personality in it than there is on the first album, because when we started doing the second record, I kind of knew where my role was. I kind of knew what and where the band was going at that point. So I was able to kind of step up my own personal game, so to speak, on the second record.
Well, that's going to lead into a question in a second as well, too, because I want to ask you, you kind of explained how you've grown from Sons of Apollo, the first record, to the new one, but I'm going to ask you in a moment, too, about how the band has grown as together, like, getting in a room, writing the writing room, recording, and then doing a big tour, a successful tour, and then getting back and doing it all again. So we'll talk about that in a second. But I shared a video today, and I forget which one it was. It was with Yngwie. It was from 85 over in Tokyo, and I was just floored. It was a pro shot video. There's not a lot of those. And it was the confidence that you had. I mean, even then, you were nailing it, first of all, which is great. I mean, I have personally never seen you do a performance where you haven't nailed it. And as you said yesterday, on your live show, you said, YouTube now is forever. So you make a bad performance, you'll know about it. And forget about the 100 that you do that are good. You have one bad one, and you're forever known for it.
Everybody remembers.
But you were killing it. And I'm just curious, you just a moment ago mentioned how the confidence level came from the first record with Yngwie to the second, but where did that confidence level come for you, and how have you been able to maintain it without being cocky? You're being the entertainer, but you're delivering your performance with confidence. How did you establish that?
Well, you've seen the video. The main confidence getter was that hair. I had good hair. No, I'm just kidding. That's one of the worst haircuts in the business. You know what? I really don't know where that came from, because it still comes from wherever it comes from. There's still a sense of confidence and, I guess, easeability in being on stage when I'm doing with whoever I'm doing it with. And let me remind you as well, that show, that Live in Tokyo show, was the 5th show we ever played together ever.
Wow.
Ever.
Wow.
Now, we knew each other at that point for like 4.5 months, hanging out with each other, right, making the 2 records, partying, going to gigs, whatever. We'd known each other for that amount of time. The first show we did together was in January of 1985, and that was here in LA. The second one was San Francisco the night after. Then we flew to Japan. We did 2 other nights, and the third night there, which is our 5th show ever, was captured on home video for the world to see. So you had to, whether you had the confidence or not, you make it before you break it, or fake it to make it. And that's what I think that's what we all did. We just had to make sure that we felt that confidence, and we had to make it look like we knew what we were doing, even if we didn't. You know, I just turned 19 before we did that live tour, because we were all kids. I mean, the oldest one in the band, I think, was 22 or 23. That was Anders, the drummer.
Now,
we were all kids.
How old would Yngwie be there?
If I was 19, Yngwie was 21 or going on 22, or maybe, no, yeah, he was 21.
Okay.
I think so. Let me think, because his birthday's in June. So yeah, it was before his 22nd birthday, I believe. So everybody in the band, I think Jens, the keyboard player, was 20, and Marcel was also 20 or 21. It was crazy. We're just kids.
Yeah. Well, it was good. And that's the thing, too. There's a question coming up from Average Joe. He's going to talk about some guitar players that you've played with. Obviously, a lot of monster guitar players. You still are. But that's the thing. You surround yourself with great people. And I mean, you've your whole career, you've been surrounded by some of the very best in the business. And I think that goes a long way, too. Because, I mean, number one, I mean, you're just as good as what they're offering on their instruments. You're bringing the same game that they are. But you got to bring that game. And if you don't, they're kicking your butt to make you better. And you're doing the same thing to make them better.
Or you get fired.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But Average Joe says, Jeff, can you name some of the guitar players that you've played with? Go ahead and go through some. Obviously, we just talked about Yngwie, but share some of the guitar players that you've done some, the celebrity jams, and then of course projects that you've worked with as well too.
Well, yeah, I mean, starting with Yngwie, that's a high bar to kind of beat or to even meet.
Sure.
Meet. There you go. I did a record with a Japanese guitar player named Kuni just after my stint with Yngwie, and then I worked with a guy named Axel Rudipel, German guitar slinger out there. He's very well known in Germany and a lot of parts of Europe, a lot of parts of the world, especially now. Did a few records with him, but obviously the bigger name end of course Neil Schon with Soul Circus and Journey. Bumblefoot, of course. Who am I missing? Geez, I'm missing a lot of people. I've jammed. I've done things with Brian May. Obviously, we did this jam with Steve Vai a couple of years ago. And then there's like the recordings. I've done the tribute things I did with Bob Kulick behind the helm, these tribute albums with Blue Saraceno and Bob Kulick. And
jeez.
I'm just blessed to be in this company with these incredible guitar players. And, one of my dear friends is Richie Kotzen, and
down the street.
He just lives down the street from me. And so I'm just overall humbled by the fact that I can actually say, these are my friends. These are not just people that their photos were on my walls at one point. They are actually my friends now. And they're actually just normal people, just like myself. And we have something in common at that point.
I agree with you. And this is funny. My better half, Sandra Lee, she goes by Butterfly and Ladybug Show. She says, would love to see Yngwie on the show, blink, blink. It's really funny because when anyone comes on the show, I know you've had some mixed feelings with Yngwie over the year, just with the career. And I know you said yesterday on the show too, as we all get older, it's nice to mend some of the bridges and stuff like that. And I'm sure all those people out there that, would be willing to do that. But it's funny, if anyone ever comes on the show and says anything bad about Yngwie, she'll just lash. She loves Yngwie. And I'll sometimes throw some shade a little bit, like I'm a Eddie Van Halen fan. I'm a Steve Vai and a Joe Satriani fan. I love Yngwie too. And I went through that phase, but I don't want to say anything bad because I want to get him on the show. But it's funny if anybody ever says anything bad, she's the first one to nail. I don't want to say anything bad because I want to get him on the show. There you go. And Thomas Nordic, he's been on the show and he's shared some really funny. Thomas never says anything bad about anybody, but he always finds the funniest stories about people to share. And we met him on the Generation Axe tour, with Steve and Tosin and Nuna Betancourt and stuff like that. And of course, Yngwie. Oh my God, it was hilarious. Yngwie is doing like these solos, and then he's got, I think he had like 4 Rolexes on his wrist, and he was looking at, should I stop here? And it continues. It was just hilarious. But we gotta love Yngwie.
You know what? And that was part of my speech when I got inducted to the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame a couple years ago. It's easy fodder and it's easy blabbermouth content to talk shit about Yngwie and to talk badly about him. And there's been enough back and forth, and I got to the point where it's not necessary. Like I said yesterday in my own chat, we're getting older. We're getting to the point where people are dropping like flies. People that I should be friendly with, people that should be brothers with, are leaving the earth. And I don't want any ill will. I don't want anybody to leave this planet, including myself, with any water under the bridge. You know, that we have to. I want to mend any fences, and I extend that olive branch to them. I would absolutely love to have these people in my life on a regular basis, because you know what? We all had the same common bond and same common goal, is to do what we do as long as we can do it. And that's the only thing, that's the one thing we have in common. Everything else is incidental. So as far as I'm concerned, if it wasn't for Yngwie Malmsteen, I would not be here talking to you right now. My life could have taken another course. I might have ended up being who I am in another face and another, but everything led to these roads right here because of Yngwie Malmsteen. So as far as I'm concerned, I got nothing bad to say about the guy anymore. I got nothing but love and respect for the guy, because it's true. Everything that he was doing at that time is where I stepped into the game and where I was able to get my feet wet in this business and industry. And from that point on, that's where I was able to continue from. Without that, it would have been a different course. And I'm so grateful, and I owe that guy so much more than talking shit about an instance or something that happened between us so many years ago that doesn't even matter.
Well, that's very classy, because not a lot of people would do that. A lot of people say, screw him. And I'm not just using Yngwie as an example. I'm talking to anybody, but it's good to do that. And the fact that this comes up a lot on the show. Like, we always have our guests talking about, I'm just so glad I got that call, whether it be a virtual call or, a tech says, hey, tech for one band says they're looking for a guitar player, man, you should come and try out for that. Just one of those things like that. And that is life-changing in a lot of cases. You got to be ready for it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Well said. And we have reached out to Yngwie's team as well too. So we'll see what happens.
Cool.
G-Man Music, and you talked earlier about Neil Schon and Soul Circus. So G-Man Music says, Jeff, been a big fan of yours since we saw you with Neil Schon and Soul Circus live at the Fillmore in San Francisco. So very, very cool. And Guitar Hack is a major Kiss fan, big Kiss fan. He was asking, you mentioned Bob Kulick, and I know that perked his ears up as soon as he heard that. He asked what it was like working with Bob.
Bob was a joy to work with. He's a chatterbox, and so when we get together, it was always we spoke more than we actually got work done, because we didn't see each other that often, only when we were doing sessions together. So we just chewed the fat a lot, and we know a lot of people, a lot of the same people. We have a lot in common in this industry. So Bob it was a blessing to work with. He would never try to change who you are. In fact, I looked at him when he was doing those tribute albums. He was more like a casting director. Okay. He knew certain songs call for certain personalities and certain voices and certain sounds. And it was almost like he took here's a melting pot of musicians. Jeff's voice would be great for this song because this sounds like a song that Jeff would have sounded. This song sounds like Lemmy would have sung it if Lemmy wrote that kind of song. And he was like a cast master. It was great. Like a playing chess, and he was putting the right pieces in the right place. That's one of the things I love working with Bob, because every single person on those tribute records was perfectly cast, the same way as somebody's casting actors for a movie. He was perfect for that, and that was where his knowledge in the industry and the people that he knows, that's where his forte, I think, was the strongest when he was doing those records.
We'll talk about some TV and shows towards the end of the program, but I'm so glad you kind of used a casting director reference, because there's a few people that and these aren't people, these are positions, these are titles for male and female positions that I greatly, madly respect, especially in the TV and movies scene. There's casting directors. A couple shows that I like to watch, and we'll go back into our favorite shows that aren't like Walking Dead and Breaking Bad, stuff like that. Right. Casting directors are the same. Better Call Saul, same people. The people who do the scoring is absolutely amazing. And then the showrunners, the writer's room and the showrunners. So that's like the Bob Kulick in a way as well too. He's like the casting director. He's the showrunner, so to speak. It's very, very cool, but mad respect for those people.
Right. And it's an important thing to know your craft. I mean, some of those tribute records didn't come out so great. And I think Bob's always came out great because he knew exactly who to place for. I mean, there was when we did the Queen tribute one, and I saw the list of songs. Oh man, I want to do that. I want to do that one. And when I saw Spread Your Wings and I saw Tommy Shaw was cast to sing that song, I'm like, oh my God, I would have never thought that. But when you think about it, and then when you hear it after the fact, Tommy's voice was perfect for it. It sounded like a song that Tommy could have written or could have sung, before Queen recorded or wrote it. So it's that kind of thing that makes it made it so cool and fun and interesting to do those particular records.
Fantastic. And I know you've worked with Joel Hoekstra, and so Brad Miller has a question here. He says, Jeff has worked with some great musicians, as we've just heard, and especially in TSO. Do you have a favorite TSO song?
Oh boy, I've done so many. There's a song on the Night Castle record that I did, and we got to do it live. There was only a couple that I got to do live on that record, but there was one that we did, I believe, the year it was released, that we did on one of the winter tours. A song called "Dreams We Conceive," and it's a ballad. But it's got more of my personality on that than I'd say any of the other songs. The other songs are more, I guess, Broadway musical theater kind of oriented. This one had a little more JSS involved in it. So when I got to sing that song, I really put myself into the character of the song, but I also put the song into my own character, if that makes any sense. And it was Dreams We Conceive from the Night Castle album. It's that album that's up there on the wall behind me.
Okay, right on. There is a good comment here, and I just missed it. Maybe a Butterfly and Ladybug can pass it on. We had somebody that was saying, a shout out to any first responders out here, and I forget who that was. Oh, here it is, from Mark Dillon. Huge. I want to recognize that for sure. It says, big shout out to all my fellow first responders that may be in the chat. Again, as we start at the top of the program, for sure, shout outs for sure. We are blessed to have you. So we talked earlier about your growth, growing from, the first record in Sons of Apollo and, things going good. Let's just kind of outside looking in at your other four members of the group there. And how do you think the band itself, we'll put them all together, put yourself back in the equation too. How do you think the band has grown from the first record to the second record?
Well, of course, we had all those guys have their own interim. They have other groups. They have other things that they've done together. They already had friendships bonded, and I've known Billy for 30 some odd years. Billy's been in other bands with Mike and other live situations with Mike. Same Derek and Mike with Dream Theater, and Bumblefoot did some stuff with Mike and Billy. They all have their kind of relationships. But until we did that first tour, we didn't have the Sons of Apollo relationship. We didn't have that bond and that chemistry just yet, and it was a slow burn for me, to be honest with you, because I'm so used to doing my own thing where I'm choosing the set list. I'm kind of putting the order, saying where certain bits are going to happen in the set, etc. And this was now stepping into something that was a five-headed monster, and I had to find my place. I had to find my role. It wasn't as easy because, I don't want to step on Billy's toes. I don't want to step on what he does or what he might be doing or what he's trying to do. And the same with Ron. So it took a few songs, a few shows, a few weeks to kind of feel it out. Where am I supposed to be in certain parts of certain songs? And even on this current tour, it was majority of the material was the new album. So it was a kind of a restart or a reboot, so to speak, as far as how that tour was going to go. But luckily we already had the camaraderie. We already had the chemistry of what to do and how to do it with each other on stage. And like I said, it took a few weeks to finally fit and gel with each other. And by the time we did that live DVD in Plovdiv, Bulgaria, man, we were a well-oiled machine. We were on a run. We could do that show anywhere, anytime by the time we got to that point. And that's a good place to be. When you have the level of a Mike Portnoy or a Billy Sheehan, you have these legends who've done so many different things with so many other legends, and we can actually make this mold come across that way, the same level, the same expectation of what they've already done. That to me was when we finally achieved success.
It must have felt really good, right? You could tell right then and there that, okay, we're doing this. Is it? This is working very well.
Absolutely. We just knew how to bounce off each other. We knew exactly that's the tough part in any band. And when you get to that point where you can look over your shoulder and you feel that confidence of who you have next on the side or behind or in front of you, that to me that's the ultimate achievement, because there are a lot of bands that don't get to that point.
Yep. That's right. And I mean, just because you have a super group, a bunch of super musicians, and I know sometimes you guys don't like to necessarily be called a super group because you're just regular dudes You can play awesome. But you know, you can put some super people in a situation, and it may not always work. That chemistry has to work. And I know from the very first moment that it was even rumored that you guys were putting this group together, people were already like, okay, I can see this working. You know, before, obviously there's a lot of nucleus here, Derek and Mike from previous experience like that before too, and Mike and Billy, as you said. But it just seemed on paper that it was going to work. And of course, when you come out with the first single, geez, come on.
Well, and that's the thing. On paper, a lot of these super groups, so to speak, they do work just because they know they're going to get a lot of interest. There's going to be a lot of people jumping on board because of who's in the band alone. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the chemistry of the nucleus of a band exists. And that's one of the hardest things to accomplish. You know, you have to learn each other, and you have to want to be with each other. That's the key right there. But by the time we got to that point, it was, like I said, we'd go on stage and we'd just slay it without even thinking at that point. By the time we got to the middle of that tour, we were just going on stage, and it was like going up there with our brooms. Not necessarily against other bands, just as far as we were concerned. We could just go up on any stage with the confidence that we're going up as Sons of Apollo, not as 5 individuals from the different walks of life.
Exactly. Very, very well said. Here's a few more questions coming in for you as well, too. G-Man, actually, this one's for me. G-Man Music says, Eric just got line 6HX effects, so have a few videos to catch up on. Thank you for the content. No problem. You're very welcome. Blackie says, Eric, ask Jeff about Miles Kennedy, if you've worked with him in the past. Have you worked with him at all? Great singer.
Never worked with him. I mean, we were both featured in the Rockstar movie. He was actually in the movie, but his voice is featured at the end when Wahlberg takes a hike. It's, you know, he does a little cameo there. That's the closest we got to working together. There was a few years after that, I believe Alter Bridge were playing a show at the House of Blues, the old House of Blues in Hollywood, before they knocked it down, and they invited me up on stage to do AC/DC cover. Other than that, we've just been friends through the years when we've run into each other at festivals, etc. Once in a while, you know, we exchange emails, but I'm nothing but absolute respect for Miles. I love his voice, but more so, I love his character. I think he's a great person. He's got a kind heart. He's one of those. It's funny because you always hear the stories about LSD, the lead singer's disease.
Yeah.
That guy doesn't have a fraction of it, and maybe because deep down he's actually a guitar player, singer,
great guitar player.
Yeah, exactly. Somewhere in there is not the typical lead singer who just thinks the world evolves around him. Not that I do either, but I like to surround myself with good people like that, and Miles is just one of those people.
It's funny that you mention that too, because I've had a couple guests on the show where, you know, their lead instrument. I mean, they could be a lead guitarist or they could be a lead vocalist, either or. And in most cases, there are. Yeah, Michael Sweet, and he. I mean, phenomenal guitar player, phenomenal. I mean, when Oz was ill for a little while, he held all the duties. I mean, he can shred. But I think you have a point there because you're focusing on dual duty in a lot of cases. And I've heard nothing but mad respect too. Todd Kearns was on the show about 6 months back and giving him huge props. Everyone I've ever heard in interviews or whatever talking about Miles is just, you know, respect. And that's cool to see these people that we admire.
And it's one of the reasons why he's held on to this gig even with Slash. You know, Slash doesn't deal with any bullshit. You got to get along with the guy because what they've been doing is they've been doing some great stuff together, and that's why they're still doing it. You know, Slash's entire band, they're just great guys. They're just really good people. They all kind of fit in the same mold of good people.
That's right. And speaking of which, Brent Fitt's birthday today. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday, Brent Fitz.
Happy birthday,
yeah.
Brent.
Here's 2 questions from the same person. Tina Fender. Now, one is based on when we get back to normal, and that who knows when that's going to be. But she's asking when you're going to come back to Nashville. So obviously we have to wait to get better. You know, the world to get better, and then rebook tours. But I'm sure that could possibly happen. But she does have another question. She says, "Tell me where you got the name L'Amour."
To be honest with you, I'd done a couple shows at L'Amour's in Brooklyn with Yngwie back in the day, back in '85. And when I left Yngwie and I started this particular band, when we were looking for a name, I just happened to look in the corner. I had my old L'Amour T-shirt that I got from that venue just sitting in the corner of the room. And it was one of the names that we didn't hate when I dropped it, because at that point we were trying to be something a little more of the like a cross between Prince meets Van Halen. We wanted the kind of the funk, the heavy funk soul thing with a hard rock background, kind of like what Dan Network was doing. And extreme did so well later, but they weren't necessarily trying to do a funk like a Prince thing. We were. So we were looking for that kind of glam romance kind of thing that Prince was doing at that time. And L'Amour means love in French or in Spanish. I forgot where it came from. But yeah, it fit the bill based on what we were trying to do. And there were other bands with, using a Valentine or a heart reference and all that. And that one just stuck. I think it just came from me looking in the corner and seeing that old L'Amour shirt sitting in the corner of my room.
Very cool. Very cool. It's amazing sometimes how these things, appear, right?
Yeah. And that was a great guitar player in that band, by the way. Brian Young, who was David Lee Roth's last guitar player before, Dave went into a hiatus, and when he did that talk show replacing Howard Stern terrestrial radio. Mm-hmm. And Brian went on to he's living in Austin and still playing with a bunch of great musicians and doing his thing. So great guitar player. My brother Joey was the drummer in that band. So yeah, it was kind of a cool thing to do post Yngwie, and it was rejoining Yngwie because L'Amour kind of fell apart when I got back into Yngwie's fold. And then after that, that's when I just started doing all the other stuff that led to where I'm at now.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's cool that you mentioned Jeff as well, too. He's still a friend of mine. And talking to him recently, getting back, he's been on the show way back. Yeah. He hooked me up when I was in my late 20s, I guess it would be, when he was doing the Raw thing. And we over in Battle Creek, Michigan. And at the time, It was Jeff. It was Ray Lugier on drums, James Amenzo on bass. And, oh, man, I mean, talk about a band. And doing Van Halen.
Right.
Oh, yeah, just insane.
I said Jeff. I'm correcting you. You said Jeff.
Oh, yeah, Brian, yeah. Sorry, no, thank you, I appreciate that. I'm thinking of you for a second, but yeah, right. Brian, yeah, and a phenomenal player. And Dave had his game. I mean, Dave was on point all night long. And
that band was slamming. Oh my God, like you said, Lomenzo and Ray Luzier, one of my favorite drummers. Oh my God, those guys were unstoppable.
Yeah, I know. It was pretty cool.
They were as strong as a lineup as a band as was the Eat 'Em and Smile lineup. So Dave was just killing when those guys were in the band.
Yeah, agreed. Mr. Hellstorm says, could you ask Jeff about the song End of Days from Soto? I could hear Queen doing that song. Plus, it got him through some physical therapy. So that's cool.
Yeah, End of Days was that was kind of inspired by the Terminator 2 movie. That End of Days. It was basically about the end of time, being the end of the world as we knew it, being overrun by computers and robots, etc. So I kind of got the theme of the word. That song to me was kind of a Bohemian Rhapsody of sorts. It had so many different ups and downs, and had different sections that came up and came down, and the whole Queen reference is exactly what I wanted out of that. I wanted, especially the heavier middle section where there's a ton of backing vocals. I just layered and layered and layered because I just wanted that thing to sound very choir-esque, to get that kind of Queen vibe from it, but a heavier Queen, not so much, not the 70s Queen. I wanted the modern Queen vibe out of that. So yeah, it was kind of like the end of time kind of thing. That's hence the title, End of Days.
Nice. Well, here's a question as well, too. This is from Guitar Hack, and this is going to lead, I'm going to kind of tie his question in with the question I had written down as well, too. I see a lot of people in different guitar forums and just band forums and social media, stuff like that. And your name comes up a lot alongside some big names of, musicians, singers, especially that I've grown up listening to. I'm sure you as well, too. Like somebody I used to love growing up was Ronnie James Dio. Let me see. What did I mark down? And I know I've seen these in this. Yeah, well, Freddie Mercury, of course. Ian Gillan and other people like that. And your name is in there with these greats and being held. Like I saw on the video I shared of Malmsteen, someone commented, the very first comment on the video had a lot of likes on it, they said Malmsteen's best singer ever. So very, very cool. Mad respect from the world. But the Guitar Hack is asking, who were some of your influences growing up? Obviously Freddie, but carry on and let us know who your influences were.
Well, they all started with I started with a huge soul Motown background.
Nice.
When I was a kid, all the way until I was maybe 13, 14, I didn't listen to rock. I hated rock. To me, it sounded like noise. It sounded like trash. It sounded like untalented garble. I couldn't stand rock until bands like Journey and Toto came along, and Foreigner, because their singers, you can hear that they were so soul influenced. Steve Perry, you can hear the Sam Cooke just oozing in his voice. Bobby Kimball, you can hear that whole Motown Philly sound of that R&B roots to his voice. blended with hard rock guitars, and the same with Lou Gramm. You can hear that really bluesy R&B soulfulness of Lou Gramm in Foreigner. So that was my first introduction into actually saying, yeah, you know what, I actually dig rock. And then, of course, when Queen came along, they were kind of the nuts and bolts of the situation, because they could do anything and everything and master it. And that's the ultimate goal for me, was to try be a master of all trades, a jack of all trades, but master of all trades, like Queen. And I'll never reach that standard. I'll never reach that level. But using them as a catalyst was my blueprint. And this is one of the reasons why I've always succumbed to not letting go of my original roots. When I started listening to Dio and Bruce Dickinson and Rob Halford and David Lee Roth, I didn't lose the soul side. All I did was inject it and infuse it into what these guys were already doing, the same way Perry did. Perry was a crooner in primary, for all intents and purposes, a rock band. If you heard the original ideas that Neil Schon had for Journey songs, they were stemmed from like Jimmy Page and Cream and all that stuff. But by the time Steve Perry got his hands on it, it sounded like a soulful R&B version of a rock song.
Wow.
And that's what became the Journey sound. So I did the same thing. I tried to, even when I hear it all the time, and it's kind of funny to hear soul and prog in the same sentence, because I've heard and read some interviews from Mike Portnoy where he says one of the best things about Jeff and what he brings to the band is he brings a soulful, kind of funky groove approach to what we're doing. And there's no singers doing that in the sense of that side of music. So it's kind of funny to hear and see that, because I'm not even trying to do that. That's just natural. That's part of my DNA, and it's coming across that way. And I always dreamed and hoped it would come across that way without sounding forced. And that's basically my influences are still that old R&B, that old the Philly sound, the Motown sound, the Jackson 5. When Michael was just a little kid and he had so much soul and he was an old soul for such a little kid. That's where I got my roots from, and I held on to those roots even today to what I'm doing.
And that could be some of the confidence too that you have. I'm thinking back as you're talking about that confidence level earlier. I mean, the Jackson family, very, very talented family, and I mean they gave it, man. They certainly gave it every performance. So very cool.
Freddie Mercury was the ultimate showman. So if you could take the cross from the confidence of a Freddie and a David Lee Roth, who are both ridiculous showmen, you take also the confidence and the showmanship of Prince, and then you add the level of actual talent and actual singing, not just going up there and doing yipes and yips and trying to get away with it. David Lee Roth made a career out of it, and thank God for him, because I mean, Dave's a king. He's a god for what he was able to bring to the music. Those were my influences. Those were the ones that gave me that confidence. The vocals department came from the Perrys and the Freddie Mercurys, and the stage came from the David Lee Roths and the Paul Stanleys of the world.
That's perfect. And it's so cool that you mentioned, I'm so proud to hear that the R&B and Motown was a major influence, because young kids right now, if they come and discover Van Halen, excuse me, some of these younger kids, they discover Van Halen through their parents, or maybe there's a Van Halen song in a video game or something, and they're like, what's this Van Halen band? And you say to them, oh, thank God for our, R&B and Motown, or we wouldn't have Van Halen. People are going to think you're crazy. But they certainly wouldn't have Van Halen with David Lee Roth, because he brought that. That's what gave their swing.
Absolutely. If anybody wants a good read, I mean, obviously Noel Monk's book is very good, but Greg Renoff's book about Van Halen, the early beginnings before they hit it big, is fantastic, because it talks about all of that stuff, the way Dave infused James Brown and Sam and Dave, all the old R&B stuff that he wanted this band to be more than just a rock band. And maybe he wasn't the best singer in the world, but he certainly knew how to bring that element of show and the element of versatility to that band, because I'm sure Eddie wasn't bringing in Marvin Gaye and that old Motown sound. He was just doing what he's doing. But Dave brought in an element that did not exist. And those guys were the three-ring circus that started this whole run.
That's right. And what he did too, and I'm sure it wasn't just David Lee Roth doing this back in the day, but I mean, he had a big hand in this, tying in communities when they're like a perfect example in Greg's book in Van Halen Rising, communities like Hispanic communities, Black communities, were always separate. We have our thing going on over here. You have your thing going on over here. And all of a sudden you're seeing people gathering at these parties, For the most part, no fighting. Everyone's enjoying each other, having a bunch of beers, but it really tied communities together through music. And that's something we can do. And you said something really cool on your show yesterday. You talked about some of these artists where they'll redo a song, let's say in Spanish or something, and they'll kind of cater to the Spanish audience. They don't want to hear it like that because
Right.
Language and emotion is driven from the language it's recorded in, correct?
Correct. I mean, when Iron Maiden didn't become as big as they are in Mexico and Spanish-speaking countries because they adapted to the language, they became as big as they are because of the way those songs sounded to those kids that were buying those records. And they might not speak a lick of English, but they know every word to those records.
Mm-hmm.
Now, adapt to their language. You're taking something away from what and how they heard it from the first time. And so, yeah, there's always that controversy. There's always somebody that has the idea, hey, why don't you sing it in Spanish? It's your heritage. And maybe we can open up a new market. It's like, we're not going to open that market up because a one and done, what, we're going to do the whole record live now in Spanish? No, we're not. So it's a novelty thing. It's fun to do, but it's certainly not going to open new doors if those doors are already open for them wanting to hear your songs the way they originally recorded.
Agreed. I have a friend over in Italy, and I haven't spoke to him in a little while. I should reach out right away, especially because Italy's hit so heavy over there. His name's Attilio, and he wrote a really beautiful song. He was a Van Halen fan. He still is, and he's played some of the Van Halen guitars. And he sent me a beautiful song, and it's sung in native, Italian. And beautiful, beautiful song. And now I can't speak a word, so I don't really know what was being said. And then he said, I'll send you the English translation so you can read it. And so as I was reading, I was like, oh, it does kill it. Like it does kind of take away the emotion.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you that same song sung in English with the English lyrics, it lost that element of whether it's romanticism or exotic or whatever you got from it when you heard it in the other language. It's now lost.
Yeah, I'd rather not know the lyrics and just kind of go along with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like Feliz Navidad.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
It was sung in Spanish and English, so he got away with it.
That's right. Here's another question from RW bass player. What are Jeff's thoughts and memories on the Eyes album? I still dig that record, he says.
Yeah, that was a great, it's funny. Eyes was kind of a bought band. I hate saying it because I don't want to say anything bad about the politics of that band, but the drummer was from a well-to-do family, and he basically was buying the musicians that he wanted to play with to build and form the best band that he possibly could to give him the better chances of getting a deal and living out his dream. So when I got involved in that, like many others, they basically offered me a salary to be part of the band, and if we got a deal, then I would lock into a contract and that whole thing. And to be honest with you, the contract was up right before we got the deal. And I signed an extension of the contract. I thought this is never going to get signed, but I needed the money. I love the music, but I was doing so many other things that were more me, and I was really into musically, that I thought I'll just do it because I know it's not going to happen. We're not going to get signed. Everybody's already turned it down, but they had me sign an extension and gave me a little extra paycheck for it. And we actually got a deal. We penned the deal during that time, during that extension. So from that, I thought, okay, well, if I'm stuck here, so to speak, I'm going to make the most of it. And the most of it actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because we made a great record. We made two great records. One was released after I was out of the band. The second album was actually supposed to be the first album. It's very confusing. So anybody who knows the band Eyes, there was an album called Windows of the Soul, and they think that's our second album. No, that was actually our first album. We recorded that. They self-financed it. And once we got the deal, they wanted to release the album as that version. But the record company they say it's a little too light in the ass. We want more up-tempo rock songs. Okay. And so we kind of we kept two of the songs from those recordings, maybe three. And then we wrote and recorded more of a Def Leppard, Bon Jovi-ish kind of sounding thing, whatever was the, flavor of the week.
Yeah.
For that debut album. So when I was already out of the band, they had these other recordings. Like, what am I going to do with this? I can't do anything with it. I'm just going to release it and not tell anybody anything. They're just going to think it's the second album from Eyes. But it was a great time. I did a lot of great stuff on those records. Some really good songs. Some of my best singing actually is on those records. So cool. I can't put it down in the slightest right now. It was a great situation. Still great friends with the guys in the band. They're not in music so much anymore. But we still keep in touch, different walks of life, and I have nothing but fond memories now from a situation that was supposed to be a bought situation.
Yeah, always be recognize these opportunities, right? Another opportunity that shaped you in some form.
Sure.
Yeah. So great
And,
question.
and again, and that's another question that comes up with in a lot of interviews through the years. They say, "Do you have any regrets
No.
in life?" And I can't have any regrets, because if I did something that I didn't know was going to turn out the way I didn't want it to, or that I wouldn't necessarily want to put in my repertoire, I wouldn't have that experience to say it was a bad experience. It was something I regret. So I can't regret something that I learned from. If I learned from something I'll never want to do again, I had to learn from it. So I have no regrets in life. And in general, I just, I'm glad I stuck it through, or I'm glad I took the paycheck, so to speak, that put that a situation where I actually got some enjoyment from it.
Good. Very, very well said. I like that. Having no regrets, because obviously you're just phoning it in if you do. It's something you shouldn't have done. You should have passed on that opportunity if there are regrets.
Yeah, and you know what? The thing is, you get something from everything you do.
Mm-hmm.
Even there's so many. Even TSO, for instance, when I first stepped into those shoes, I'm not a musical theater guy at all. I'm not Broadway musicals. That's not my bag. It's not my cup of tea, and it's very much infused in the TSO thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, you got the wrong guy. That's not me at all. But the presence of Paul O'Neill, the founder, the one who brought that whole thing and started that whole thing, what I got from him is so much more valuable in the end, because I got something from him that I didn't have in myself already before. And I take what I got from TSO, I'm able to actually disperse it. There's a lot of TSO that I'm actually putting into the new Sons of Apollo. I wouldn't have that if I didn't do TSO. If I turned that down and said it's not really me, I stuck it through, and then I actually started enjoying it, and then I actually learned from it. And that's with everything that I've done in my life. I've learned something from it, even if I'm taking a tinge or I'm taking a big chunk of it and putting it into what I'm doing in the future.
It's like almost having a little recipe book. And I'm going to put a couple of these things in here for another day. And you go to flipping through your recipe book, and it's like, I got some ingredients here that just might work for this.
Yeah. And you know what? It saves you from being a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
It saved me from, anyways. I have so many influences, whether they came naturally or not, that I'm able to now utilize in other walks of life. And that's how I see it. There's no negative in that at all.
Agreed. And I mean, we have influences. I know I can speak for you as well, too, that we probably don't even really, like, we never forced to listen to them, but like our parents playing records for us growing up, or not for us, for them, we're hearing it. Like my mom would play Les Paul and Mary Ford and Burl Ives and Chet Atkins.
One of my biggest influences is because of my mother playing those records in the house, and that's Tom Jones.
Oh, there you go.
That was one sexy dude with a hell of a voice. And you know what? I grew up loving that voice just because I heard it in the background so many years. And now when I hear it, not only does it bring me my childhood, but it reminds me, oh my God, that guy can sing. So
and it's kind of funny. All our moms loved him, and probably all of our dads hated him, right?
Yeah.
Because every mom, just loved Tom Jones, right? That's hilarious. Another nice little prop I want to mention as well, too, our friend Leanne, who goes by Ladybug in the chat. She's a seamstress, and she's great with sewing. That's her awesome talent, and she's making 20 masks for a local nursing home. So props to you. They're very, very nice. Thank you for that, and that's going to be very much appreciated. Here's a really cute comment.
No.
Awesome.
Sorry.
That's all good, man. Diego Serrano says, hey, Jeff, thank you for those Sons of Apollo and Soto shows in Puerto Rico. I don't know if you remember, but I was the kid with a Greta Van Fleet t-shirt at the Soto show. That's so cute. I love that. Big fan.
I do remember that. Absolutely. And it's weird because I'm Puerto Rican, but I didn't have any real experience playing in my where my heritage, my family, and everybody comes from until Journey. Journey was the first time I got to play a show in Puerto Rico, and that was in 2006 with Def Leppard, and then it went dry for the longest time until Sons of Apollo played there. Now it's opened up a whole new door, not only because I'm Puerto Rican, so when a Puerto Rican artist comes home, so to speak, you're welcome with the biggest. Oh my God! And so when Soto got to play there, it was just amazing. It's just you really, really feel that love of your people, of those people, and they went through the worst shit, with the hurricanes and all that. And you go there, you would never know. They're happy. It's hard to put into words. I had the best time playing those shows in Puerto Rico, and I gotta keep coming back.
I can picture it right now. It probably feels like they're young little boys coming home, to visit, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a homecoming in that sense. And I'm sure it's the same thing as our Arnell experience when he joined Journey, because I think a big Filipino community came together to be Journey fans all of a sudden. Maybe they liked Journey, or they already had a community of fans already. But when he joined, he brought the whole country into Journey's world. And so
Nice.
all of a sudden they're like, whoa, look at what this did for us. And that's kind of how I feel about finally coming home. When I go to Puerto Rico now, I feel like I've come full circle, because I was born in Brooklyn. I really didn't have any connection with my heritage as far as the music and really knowing the people and really knowing, any much about it. But now when I go back, oh my God, I absolutely love it.
That's got to be really nice. I can just imagine. Blackie asked Jeff, so we talked about some of your vocal influences, and we talked about a lot of the guitar players you've played with over the years. But let's kind of go back a little bit before you necessarily got into music as far as performing professionally. Who were some of the guitar heroes that you were into back when you were young?
Well, the first one was absolutely positively Eddie.
Cool.
I mean, Eddie was the pioneer in my eyes. As I said earlier, I wasn't into rock. So clearly I wasn't into Zeppelin. I wasn't into Gilmour. I wasn't into Hendrix or any of the guys that came before Eddie came into the scene. Eddie was the game changer. And obviously after Eddie was Randy Rhoads, and then, of course, Yngwie Malmsteen. So in that order, those were the guys that really did it for me. I was a huge Yngwie fan before I got to sing for him. I love the Alcatraz album. I love the Steeler album. I would dig and search for his demos, and I was a big Yngwie fan before I got the gig. So even when I went to go meet him for my first audition, so to speak, I just thought the only thing that's going to come out of this, I'm going to get to meet Yngwie Malmsteen. It'll be cool. Maybe get a photo with him. I never dreamed that he was actually going to accept me and I would actually be starting my career with him. So, and again, that it all goes back to what I said about how I feel about him from this day forward, or from that day forward when I did that speech.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I have a bad memory or something that somebody brings up that, oh, remember when that happened, I just think, no, I don't want to remember that happened, because I want to remember what good came out of it. Yeah,
that's good. That's positive for sure. Because I mean, that can be like a cancer on your soul, taking that to your grave.
Sensationalism is people love dirt. They want to hear dirt.
I know.
They want to see the National Enquirer kind of stuff more than they want to see peace and love and joy and harmony. So I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, there's been too much. There's been only that for the years that I've known and been a part of or been associated with Yngwie. So why not turn that around and try put a positive spin on it?
Exactly. Very, very well said. Here's a good question. Digging into the archives, Louis Villarreal says, are there any unreleased songs out there in any project you've been in that we may be hearing sometime in the future?
Probably not.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm chewing gum.
It's okay.
I'm not being rude. It's I get glycerin from the sugarless gum. Helps the throat. I've been talking a lot. I forgot to bring something to drink.
Oh, right. Yeah, and that's one of the things. I'll let you chew for a second. I'll interrupt you, and I'll tell you something that you said yesterday, because you talked about one of the things, and I'm actually taking your time. If going on almost 90 minutes, we'll wrap up at 10:30. But you said tips for bands yesterday on your live stream. Like, if you're getting out there, try your best not to talk as much. Save your voice. Try to avoid some of the partying, because your voice is your instrument. You're talking all night long, and you go to do the show the next day, and you're burnt out. Yeah,
and I do use the sugarless gum as that's one of my vices. If you see me chewing gum on stage, don't hold it against me. A lot of people, oh, that's rude. Why is he chewing gum? It's because it's actually coating my throat. Nice. I do it with TSO. I do it with everybody I play with, because you get dry up there. Sometimes there's no break, or there's no chance to get to your water, or sometimes you don't even want to do a drink of water in between every line or every song. You have some chewing gum. You're able to lubricate your throat while you're doing the course of a 16-minute song.
Exactly.
Yeah, what was the question before? We were
about any unreleased songs. Yeah.
There's a reason why there's unreleased songs. Maybe they weren't meant to be released, or they weren't meant to be finished. When time goes by, maybe they're a little dated. Truth be told, my first solo album, the very first solo album I did for Frontiers Records, Prism, that album was chock full of a lot of songs that I wrote when I was a kid, from when I was in high school, when they were just like demos. I didn't even do in proper recordings. I had like little cassettes of the band playing it and like rehearsing it in the garage. But I heard something in the songs, and I stripped it down. I rewrote and redid all the parts, and then once I sang it and mixed it for real, they were the songs that could have been what we originally imagined when we first wrote them or when we first worked on them. So that first album was a lot of old material, but at this point, everything's been used, man. I don't write to just write anymore. We used to just write just to have a catalog of songs. Now, because I'm so busy, everything has to be written for that time, for whatever that intent and purpose is. When we're doing a new wet record, we're not remember that song we didn't finish? No, there aren't any songs we didn't finish. Everything we're doing is based on stuff that we're doing right there and then. Same with Sons of Apollo, everything else I'm working on. They're not old ideas. There's nothing on the new album that was left over from the first.
Oh, that's good. So sometimes unreleased, like you say, unreleased are, they're meant to stay there. Yeah.
And we're talking about that. We're talking about doing a box set with Frontiers, because we're going on 20-year anniversary in 2022. Mm-hmm. And they say, yeah, maybe you can dig up some things that weren't released. I'm like, we released them all. There were some albums, some things that we put as bonus tracks, and they're all gone, man. I have nothing. When I go in the garage, I'll find some cassette tapes of something that I don't want released. I mean, it's not completed, but I don't think there's anything there that we didn't already finish. Maybe demo versions, they can do something like that. That's always fun to listen to.
Of course, yeah. I love demo versions, like the old Van Halen. You get to hear the things before they went to the studio, right? It's great.
Yeah.
All the bootlegs and stuff. Did you want to get a drink of water or something just to have handy?
The gums saved my life right now.
Okay, perfect. So here's something we're going to just go back a little bit just to kind of give people some advice here. And I'm seeing this all over the place. I'm seeing people this is not music. This is talking about trying to stay at home and just maybe get some advice from people that look up to you. There's some people that just think, this is just a flu. It's like a cough. It's a cold. Don't worry about it. Let's go out business as usual. There's other people that are, 12 feet down in a cement bunker, underground with all their dry goods and meal ready to eats and all those kind of things. And there's people in the middle.
Toilet paper.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's people in the middle. I mean, you're smart. You're doing it right. Can you share some advice on how you and the family are looking at this as where we are today?
Well, I mentioned that on my 2 chats this week. I'm actually utilizing the downtime. I'm utilizing the time I'm at home, because I'm never at home. I don't have the luxury of enjoying my home as much as I'd like to, because when I'm home, I'm either finishing up a project or finishing a record or starting one. And then after that's done, I got to go do a commitment of another tour, or there's always a reason I'm finishing something up so I can get ready to start something else. And I never get any real downtime at home to just do the work and then relax afterwards. And that's what I'm utilizing now. But I'm taking it the next step further. I do have a garage full of cassette tapes and DAT tapes and all these things, even old videos, that for many years I've been procrastinating, that I want to transfer to digital so I can throw away. I want to get rid of all that hoarding boxes.
Sure.
And have the stuff archived. To do what with in the future, who knows? But at least it's backed up. The stuff, they might lose the oxidation on the tapes, whatever. You just want to back the stuff up, because digital is the safest way to make sure you have everything. The same thing with old photos I want to scan. I don't have time to sit there and scan a photo at a time or listen to a tape. Do I want to save that? No, throw it away. I don't have that time. Now I have that time. And man, I'm getting a lot of stuff done. I'm telling you right now. And I'm getting to just enjoy home. So I'm not missing that. I can't go down the street to my favorite club. I live near a place called the Canyon Club, and I'm there pretty much every time a cool band is playing. I know the staff there where we hang. That's my watering hole.
Yeah.
I'm not missing that lifestyle right now. I'm not missing going out and hanging out with friends because those are the reasons why I can't get any of this other stuff done.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, I'm going to be 70 years old and I'm still going to have a garage full of crap. That's not going to mean anything because I didn't get it done.
Yeah. Yeah. So, this can be tossed away.
My advice to anybody, if you're forced to be home, there's got to be something that you've been procrastinating. There's got to be something that you've been wanting to do. You just never have the time to do because you work all day. You got to pick up the kids. You got to do dinner. By the time you get to bed, or you have your weekends, or the only time off you have is vacation, you're not going to spend your vacation time cleaning out the garage. Use that time to do all those things that you had no time to do, or been meaning to do. I mean, I'm talking 10, maybe 15 years of procrastination on that stuff in the garage.
Yep.
I'm going to get as much done as possible, if not all of it, depending on how long this lasts.
That's right. Well, it's smart too, because I should have taken your advice. I mean, obviously it takes a pandemic sometimes to smarten us up. But about a year back or 2 years back, when where we live right now, we've been here for about 4 years. We live in a very, very old home, 1860s home.
Wow.
So yeah, it's old. It's basically when the town was founded. But when we moved here, we've got like the old kind of fruit cellar down in the basement, like, right? And like, it's not the best weatherproofing. And I had two Rubbermaid bins, like big ones, full of, I had probably about 150 bootleg Van Halen video cassettes. Like I mean, the best of the best, like from old Super 8s to, Pro Shots to anywhere in between. And I had a bunch of CDs and stuff like that as well. CDs were safe, but it got extremely moist. And there you go. Awesome, man. And they all went bad. Every single one. So yeah, if I would have had CDs, we'd be okay. But yeah, the tapes were ruined. And all I would have had to do is spend like a month straight converting them to digital. And then I could just throw them away. And I could have, I could have a small hard drive. Like I got a little portable one right here. I could have every bootleg on that. Right.
Exactly.
But yeah, don't procrastinate forever. And here's something funny you'll get a kick out of when you're talking about converting stuff to digital. So years ago, as a kid, my first record I ever put out was on cassette. Well, my first release was on a cassette, a real cassette. Remember these guys? And and I made about 200 of them at school, and I colored them all by hand. Like all the artwork and everything, too, and so that everyone was different. And
that's awesome.
I sold them. And then one day I get employed years down the road at an internet company, and the two ladies I work for, they went out during lunch, whatever, went to a yard sale, and they came back and they said, "Hey, Eric, we found your tape." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, right, great, right." So I go home, I'm going to convert it to digital, to MP3, whatever. Someone recorded over it. So yeah, I was talk about an ego crusher, man.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I keep it just to look at, just to say, like, maybe that might remind me, don't procrastinate, or else also too, don't get your hopes up. You know what I mean?
How's your boy doing? Is he adapting to all this okay?
He's doing great. And I feel so sorry for him. Like yesterday you recommended that movie Contagion. And so I watched it last night. Not the best movie to watch going to bed.
No.
And I had some tears, a couple of points in there, but there's a scene in there that reminds me of him. Like he's 14, got a pretty serious girlfriend. And unfortunately, I know it might sound mean, but we're not letting her come over here, and we're not letting him go over there. We just don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a scene in that movie, without giving it away, where I'll try to dance around it. Or there's a special event that was supposed to be happening, just like all these kids. There's no graduation now, possibly, all that kind of stuff. And there was a very emotional moment that the dad let happen, which was great. That was a really, really cool scene. But thank you for asking. He's kicking ass on guitar like no tomorrow, doing great stuff.
Carry the torch.
That's right.
Forward.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear you giving some advice like that as well too. I have to give props to my better half, Sandra, here, because I'm always the person that's like, it's okay. It's going to be okay. Like we get in Ontario, Canada, where we're from, we get abnormally an abundance of tornadoes warnings over the past couple of years. And we never used to have that, weather changing or global warming or whatever you want to call it, but we're getting a lot more. And she's always saying, we should have a kit. We need water. We need granola bars. We need this. We need that. I'm like, yeah, it'll be okay. And I'm going to be that guy trying to drive the Camaro out of the laneway, holding on to everything, getting into when there's a tornado. But I'm learning from this. I really am. And I'm learning to appreciate every meal. Like I eat like Homer Simpson. It's like, like this, right?
Yeah.
And she'll say, you could chew. It would be nice if you would chew. Now I'm savoring every bite because, we are kind of rationing, like we have to.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
And you know what? It's something you don't want, you normally don't think about, that you want to be able to say, but I'm going to say it because it's true. We are living through a historical event, because when 9/11 happened, that was more of an impact on the U.S. Other things happen in the world that they impact parts of the world that we only hear about it. We see it on media, whatever. You see those documentaries when they do a span of the 80s and the 90s and all that. We are living through something that is going to be spoken about hundreds of years from now. There's nothing that's hit this country that's as bad as this. Whether you're talking about the Great Depression, recession, this is our version of that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't want to take away from the Great Depression. There were people that were living in the streets and eating rats and bats, and that's why we got to this damn predicament in the first place. But in general, we are living through a historical, catastrophic event together. It's a planetary event that I started this and I'll end with this. Mm-hmm. We are all equal right now. There's an even playing field of survival right now, and we got to be smart. We got to be safe. And anybody who thinks this is a hoax or downplays it, I mean, I feel sorry for you. I think you should be taking everything seriously. Do research, because your own research is the only way you're going to get through this, instead of always relying and listening to other people giving you the information.
Very well said. And I heard this said the other day, and I can't quote where it came from, and I apologize. I can't give credit where credit is due, but someone had said, in these history books that are going to be written, they're being written now, will be always written in the future. This won't just be a paragraph in these history books. This will be a chapter of what we're going through.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So here's one last question here from G-Man Music, and what we'll do here to put a nice positive spin on things is everyone's looking for some fun things from entertainment TV, like the Netflixes and all those different things. I'm starting to binge watch a lot of things as well too. And one thing that's really cool, my better half, she does a show Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays with her friend Leanne. It's called the Butterfly and Ladybug Show. And what they do on Fridays, they have this Friday Fun Flicks, and they play the public domain movies, so there's no copyright, so they're free to just, and the old 40s, 50s, and 60s movies. Today we watched a bunch of Three Stooges, the original Little Shop of Horrors. I'm watching some of these movies I've never seen, and they're funny, right, and entertaining, and B movies and horror movies. But I'll ask you his question first, and then we're going to come back and I'll ask your suggestion on some things you can suggest for people to watch while they're trying to, stay sane at home. So G-Man Music says, what do you enjoy doing other than music?
Well, I absolutely enjoy the binge watching thing, and having somebody like Portnoy in your band, he is the go-to guy. That guy is a film buff. He's a miniseries buff. He knows so much about really good stuff that you can definitely latch onto and sink your teeth into. I've gotten a lot of tips from Mike. And I even get to a point where I'm finishing a whole run of things I've been watching. I'll say, "Hey, Mike, what do you got? What's coming up? What should I be watching?" I haven't started the Better Call Saul. I'm all caught up with the last season, but I haven't started this one. And I'm waiting. I don't know why I'm waiting. Ozark just came out. I'm a big fan of Ozark.
Okay.
And all those episodes are out, so it's time to binge on those two. I started Narcos Mexico. I'm not as much of a fan of the Narcos Mexico as I was the first Narcos, the one that was more Pablo Escobar oriented. Let's see what else is on the horizon here. It's gonna sound. I'm actually gonna lose probably some major kudos from my followers, but I love all these reality things like 90 Day Fiance, The Bachelor, Married at First Sight. Man, I eat that stuff up. And it's not more so because they're chick flicks or chick shows.
Yep.
Because I just love watching people make fools of themselves. I love it. It's a guilty pleasure of mine that somebody that has got such a crazy existence would actually want to share that with the world.
Yeah.
And I say, bring it on. So I'm a sucker for that stuff. My wife and I, we binge on that stuff. So I'm all caught up on that stuff. I still watch the music competition shows. I'm the only one in the house that still watches The Voice and American Idol.
Okay.
And it's not necessarily because I'm a fan of the process. I don't really even think any of those shows are going to produce any superstars anymore.
Right.
I love watching where singing has come from, where singing has come. I love singing. I seeing what young men and women are doing with voices, with influences. I love seeing what teenagers are able to pull off, because they're the next generation. Whether they're going to make it from the show or not, you get to see what influence is out there and what we've left behind, or what somebody else that we love left behind. And I still love watching those shows for that reason. And so I'm a sucker for all that reality show. I love Survivor. I love all that stuff.
Cool. Well, especially the music talent shows too, because that shows work ethic. They don't just get on that show by being plucked from somewhere. You've worked really, really hard, even if you don't make it past the first round.
Yeah. You learn that they throw you into the lion's den. If you ain't gonna cut it, you shouldn't be in this business. And that's the one thing I do like about those shows. It kind of gives you, it lets you cut your teeth without having to do all the brunt work. But then you sell your life away, unfortunately, for it. So it's another lesson learned.
That's quite a mix. And I could almost picture Mike laughing at you a little bit when you talk about The Bachelor and things like that. Because I watch Mike very closely.
Me and Mike watched the Jersey Shore together. We were on tour.
Really? Really? That's hilarious.
Love that silly stuff.
Okay, that's cool. I see his social media posts all the time about the cool movies, and I mean, really, he really gets into them and doing reviews and non-spoiler reviews and stuff like that. So, I mean, he's got a nice theater in this place too.
Black Mirror. That Black Mirror I had no knowledge about, and I love that series because of Mike. He was the one that introduced me to that whole world.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, listen, I don't want to take any more of your time here. I especially want to save your voice. I know you're not out there singing, but I also don't want you to wear yourself out tonight. So I appreciate your time coming back on again. It's been a pleasure having you back, and I'm wishing you and your family safety and all the best, and stay safe. And we'll look forward to getting this world back to normal and getting you back out there, and we'll get out and see you at some shows.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you again for having me, and thank you for everybody that tuned in, listening, and watching. And best of luck. Keep this thing going, because like you're one of those people that carrying that torch. Best to your boy, just carrying the torch with playing guitar. And we need people like you in the world. We need the people that are listening and watching and buying the music and listening in the world. So we all lend a hand to everything that we're doing here.
Fantastic. It was very kind. If you don't go away, I'll say goodbye to you off the air. I appreciate those very kind words. I know I saw a lot of new faces here tonight. Thanks to Jeff. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications. And a promise that we always make here is we promise to work just as hard to keep you as a subscriber as we did to get you. So we can take that to the bank. It won't get you very far with the money, but we'll take it to the bank. We promise to work very hard for you.
You got Billy coming up on Sunday. Don't miss that one, because Billy's always good with this kind of stuff. He's a great conversationalist, smart man. You're going to learn some things watching Billy Sheehan talk to Eric.
That's right. And he says to me, Billy says, he goes, Eric, I'll come back on any time. This will mark his 4th appearance on the show, 1 on the other channel, the other show, and 3 on Helix Hour. And he says, I'll keep coming back until the fans are bored of me. And I said, I didn't really say it to Billy, but I said to everybody else, do you think people are going to get bored of Billy Sheehan? He always brings energy, wisdom. I love him. I love him to death. He's
never the same old with Billy. He's got so much wisdom and so much knowledge, and it's just, he has a presence that you want to be around. He's like your favorite uncle.
Yeah.
He's got a story. He's got something to teach you, and he's funny as hell. He's always got something funny to tell. So love Billy Sheehan, and you guys enjoy him.
Awesome. All right, everyone, have a safe and fun weekend. I know you're probably not going out anywhere, but be safe at home, and you can have lots of fun at home. It's a lot safer than being out there. Be careful. Keep in touch with all of us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time on the channel. And until then, thank you so much, and cheers.
Hey, you're still here? Eric Jr. here, reminding you to check out our full lineup of quality merch. Available right now in the Broadstash Boutique. Quality products and fast shipping. Visit broadstash.com today.
Video production services for Rock Shop Live are provided by Design 39 Media. Visit design39media.com for all your website, photography, and video production needs. Microphones for Rock Shop Live are provided by Rode Microphones.